Okay, welcome to the Row Faster series I should really know this, part 7. So, weights training, controversial topic. I've got a lot of requests on like how to do this, how best to fit it into rowing as well, around your training, what are the purposes behind it, what exercises, when to do which exercises, before or after high intensity, how to taper with it, many things. So, first one, to get into the why. Number one thing for me with weights training is robustness, is building a strong core, strong shoulders, strong joints that are going to be able to take the load as you get fitter. Probably what's going to progress the most with your rowing training is your heart and your lungs. You need to build your core. Okay, your heart and lungs and your leg strength as well goes up like that, but your core strength stays the same, and probably your mobility as well goes down. So weights training for me, number one priority is robustness and mobility. The second part for me is technical, so you might look at building in some weights exercises that help with some technical changes you're trying to make in the boat, whether that be trying to engage your hips more, use your glutes more. If you're looking to be a bit more stronger in the range, so you might be looking to get more rocked over from your hips, you might look to train your hips to be stronger in a rocked over position. So again, just to touch on it, but some examples, you know, stiff leg deadlift is fantastic for that. Or you might be looking to build some core strength so that you can hold your position at the finish. Or you might be looking to build some upper body strength so that especially if you're a sculler, so you can be really strong, stretched out in that position. So again, a bit about me, a bit about my journey. Weights training, it is very open. There's plenty of people. Probably the most famous crew that didn't do it was the Kiwi pair. They obviously were probably, in my opinion, they were the best rowers of all time. They did zero weights training. For me, it's about what works best for you, but in my experience, weights training, it definitely doesn't make you slower. I think if you're swapping out some sessions for weights training, it adds a bit of variety to your training as well, so that can just bring up a bit more enjoyment, make it a bit more easy to do it consistently. Also, there's plenty of evidence out there, which again we'll talk about. Lots of science, again, not specific to rowing. There's not been very many in-depth studies on rowing and weights training, but there's plenty of useful stuff out there we can use. So for me, plenty of time. Just to caveat, I have my weaknesses, but in terms of strengths, generally, I had good base level strength. However, what I did struggle with weights training was injuries and a back injury and being able to squat and lift and load my spine properly. It was something that I avoided for a long time, but I approached it in the right way, built in progressively, looked at my form, looked at my technique, and eventually it was something that I was able to transfer into more force, getting faster on the rowing machine, and more robustness, which is number one, of course. So should you lift to get faster? Now, again, that depends on what you're after, how many sessions you have available during the week. If you're looking to drop your rowing scores, and if you're training less than 4 sessions a week, I'm going to suggest no, maybe a bit of some body weight exercises occasionally, but if you have say maybe 4 sessions a week to train, then I'm going to suggest, and you're looking to get faster. Now, of course, if you're training 4 sessions and you're looking for more just general fitness, then I would suggest putting some weights into there to help you feel a bit better. But if you're looking to get very specific in terms of rowing and you only have 4 sessions in the week to train, then I'm going to suggest that you just do rowing with the appropriate injury prevention, mobility work as well. Anywhere upwards of 4, again, 5's maybe a bit borderline, but if you're starting to train 6 times a week, depending on what time in the year, probably a good idea to be including some strength training. Generally, if you're far away from a competition, you can maybe switch. So say the average is like 6 sessions, you might look to do 2 lifting sessions per week and then 4 conditioning sessions. Getting closer to competition, you might look to just do 1 where you move into more of a maintenance phase. Okay, now the sort of splits of weights. Now, to get progressively stronger, you need to do a minimum of 2, well, I should say you need to target that muscle group twice per week. So you can't do upper body one day, lower body the next day. You have to do full body 2 days a week consistently in order to get stronger. If you're able to do more than that, if you've got 3 sessions, I suggest doing an upper, lower, and full body split. And then if you're doing 4, again, for rowers, I wouldn't suggest doing more than 4. You can do an upper, lower, or perhaps a upper, lower mixed, maybe more of a trunk mobility session, and then a full body session or a lower body session. Again, if you're more limited on your time, you're naturally stronger. you can maybe avoid lifting. But for the general athlete, training more than 4 sessions a week, I suggest including some element of strength training into your rowing. Okay, now looking at the timing of when you want to do your lifts. Now this is kind of a popular one. Looking at maybe, should I do weights before a high intensity session the day before? If you're doing 2 in a day, should I do weights before or after? If I'm trying to smash 2 sessions together, is it better to do weights and then my high intensity, or after, or the other way around? Generally, in terms of timing throughout the day, lifting in the morning is better. Your testosterone's higher. Your core body temperature is also lower. Now that's obviously not what you want, but ideally if you're to row and do your training in the evening, you want to do it when your core body temperature is higher. Your aerobic system still, for lack of a less scientific term, is still more asleep in the morning, whereas weights training, you can afford to do that a bit earlier. So say you've got 2 high intensity rows in the week and you've got 2 low intensity rows in the week. Common question I get asked is, should I do weights before my high intensity the day before, or should I do weights afterwards? Now, at the start, if you're just starting with weights training, you're probably going to experience some DOMs and you're ultimately going to be feeling some level of fatigue into your high intensity. At the start, that's fine. I think it's something you're just going to have to put up with. But to summarize it, it depends on what your focus is for the session. If you're looking to prioritize strength training, then you're going to be doing it the day before your high intensity. If you're looking to improve the quality of your high intensity, then do your weights training the day after, because the residual fatigue from the high intensity will carry over to the quality of your weight session. So what are the best exercises for rowing? I'll keep it super simple. For a proficient lifter, somebody who has lots of experience, squats, front squats, deadlifts, cleans, split squats, straight leg deadlifts. Those are your lower body exercises. Upper body, bench press, bench pull, single arm dumbbell rows, core, leg swings, farmer carries, knee raises, isometric holds, hyperextensions. For a more beginner lifter, now upper body, you can keep that the same. Core, generally, you can keep that the same as well. You're much lower risk of injuring. It's when you're a new lifter and you look to do the more high load sessions that are going to be loading your spine that you want to be careful of. So some introductory weight sessions that are fantastic for beginners. Goblet squats. So that's just carrying, again, just look it up on YouTube. Goblet squats, yeah, I'm not even going to explain it. Look it up on YouTube. Split squats are really good as well. That's a great way to load your legs. The leg press as well. Okay, you want to move away from that, but that can be a good way to get some force into your legs. Dumbbell straight leg deadlifts as well. Those are good. You do those lower body exercises, then you're going to put yourself in a good position to eventually build into the higher, more explosive lifts. One other beginner exercise, actually, as a kind of substitute to cleans and power cleans, is simply squat jumps to have that explosive element to your training. The most important thing with these sessions is that you keep the quality of them high. You move through the range well. The most important thing is probably making sure that your pelvis moves correctly, and that with a stiff pelvis, that you're compensating your spine, your vertebrae, putting those into weak positions. So robustness, most common injury for rowers is the back. How do we use weights to strengthen your back? Well, we look at strengthening the areas around your back. The number one area to improve your back robustness is strengthening your hips. So that's why straight leg deadlifts are fantastic for this. If you move through the range correctly, either dumbbell or barbell, again, when you're starting off with this, if you've got an injury, you obviously don't want to be loading up the bar heavy. You want to get the movement right first, and then very gradually increase the load. Muscle soreness, stiffness, weakness often doesn't come from being tight or immobile. That feeling of tightness comes from soreness in your muscles because they're weak, because you're trying to use them and they're not strong enough and you've not strengthened them, and that's resulted in an injury. You also want to not just work on the linear plane. Obviously, rowers, we go up and down. As soon as we go this way or that way, when we go to play basketball with our friends, that's when we injure something normally. So we want to strengthen mainly our adductors and our abductors as well. Do that with banded exercises. You can do that with machines in the gym. Now, strengthening your hips as well has also been shown to really improve your knee strength as well. So if you've got bad knees, look towards your hips. Okay, the next is kind of like upper back and shoulder injuries. So a really good one that I get my rowers doing if they struggle with sitting up tall or being able to hold their chest up is overhead squat. Again, look it up on YouTube. Do that one right and you put yourself in a good position to strengthen your whole core. If you can start loading that up as well, that's another great one. You want to do lots of presses with rowing as well. Of course, we're developing lots of posterior strength, pulling through this way. So rowing is a full body workout apart from pretty much that motion there. So we want to do presses in the gym, or bench presses or shoulder presses, as well as some amount of shoulder activation work, making sure that we activate our rotator cuff muscles with stability exercises for your shoulders. Now, to help technique in the boat, again, I wrote this slide, but to be honest, I'm pretty sure I've kind of covered it. If you want to improve your glute strength and your ability to activate your glutes in the boat, straight leg deadlift, again, a fantastic exercise. You can do a single leg straight leg deadlift as well. Hyperextensions are really good. If you look to improve your core in the boat, do core exercises out of the boat. Pretty simple. Okay, now something that can really help transfer it into the boat well is being able to sit the catch and sit up strong in your chest and not having your shoulders build up like this. Plenty of upper body exercises are the best way to do that. You want to build your shoulder strength. A lot of the time it's presses, overhead and horizontal that you want to look at targeting. Okay, generally with weights training, you start off with the movement, get the movement right, then you move into strength. So you start moving through that range, but you add weight on top of that. That's how you build strength. And then from there, once you've got that strength, what you do on top of that is add the power elements. That's just basically using that strength quickly. So simply, if you want to get more powerful, if you want to move 100 kilos, for example, quickly, learn how to move 200 kilos. If you can move 200 kilos slowly, you're probably going to be able to move 100 kilos quickly. So in general, if you want to build power, get stronger. At the same time, you also want to practice in the gym, recruiting the central nervous system, using those fast twitch muscles that us rowers are so not used to using. With power and strength training, again, this will tie into our endurance. If we can improve our body's peak power, our peak force, then what our race pace was becomes a smaller percentage of that. So think of before, this was our max power, this was our race pace. So say max power is 500 watts and our race pace is 300 watts. If we can increase our max power to 600 watts, then this pace becomes a much smaller percentage of that overall max power, requires less energy, and allows us to do it for longer. Okay, sets and reps. Generally, when you're far away from a competition, higher reps. So in the 8 to 12 range, if you're somebody looking to put on muscle mass, you want to do 12 plus, so you can do hypertrophy, so you can build a bigger base to build your power off of. Generally, kind of the 8 to 10 reps is kind of the sweet spot. Includes some work at 5 reps. If you're really looking to build your max power, your max force output, when you get closer to a race, you might want to drop down towards 5. But again, it depends on the individual. So that 6 to 10 range is kind of that sweet spot. So another question I got on, actually a couple from the long-term planner, is do you want to lift heavy when you're in heavy volume? Short, no. If you're in your heaviest weeks of training where your volume's high, you don't want to be pushing on weights. You're going to be very fatigued. You won't be getting much benefit from it anyways. Your quality is going to be lower. You just want to move through the range kind of at a medium intensity, not looking to overload your body. If you're looking to push on, then generally you want to do that in your medium to light weeks now. Ideally, you do your heavy weeks in a light volume week with your rowing, and you do your lightweight weeks in your light weeks with rowing, but balancing everything, the macro plan, we have to make sacrifices. So if you're looking to do a recovery week from your rowing training, if you're looking to have lower volume and recover, you can maybe push on your weights there depending on how wrecked you are basically. You can maybe push on your weights in a lighter volume week, but kind of in that medium volume week is where personally I think you should be pushing on with your weights training if you're looking to. I've spoken with many weights coaches about this. I've spoken with many rowing coaches. There's not much conclusive evidence about what is best. So into a taper week, in general, if you're racing on the Saturday, stop lifting on the Tuesday. Make your last session there, shorten you kind of half the amount of sets you do. You can keep the reps the same. If you want to keep the weight the same, just do 1 set maximum at that heavy weight. It can be quite good to keep that peak force there, especially if you're also looking to repeat again and be able to continue your strength. If you're racing every 2 weeks, you will need to keep some element of strength training into your programming if you want to keep your strength. Generally, if you stop lifting on the Tuesday, if you're racing on the Saturday, that's a good way to ensure that you peak for your race without losing too much strength. Again, there's not been enough thorough weights training studies done for rowers specifically. Rowing is an endurance sport. We use oxygen as our primary resource. We can look to other sports that use oxygen as their primary resources for energy as well. This study showed strength training improved time to exhaustion by 17%. There's an improvement in work efficiency, an improvement in overall power. However, the overall aerobic endurance aspect was not shown to improve. It also wasn't shown to decrease. Another study on runners and cyclists showed no improvement to VO2 max, but it did show an improvement in exercise economy, anaerobic capacity, lactate threshold. It delayed fatigue, max strength improved, obviously, rate of force development improved, max speed improved, and endurance performance improved. This female-only study showed an improvement in the 40-minute time trial, but as well as a switch in the use of muscle fiber type from type 2X to the more efficient type 2A. Another study looking at masters athletes from ages 45 to 55 showed an improvement in force endurance, efficiency improved by 18%, and that improvement when compared to a younger group was a greater improvement, strengthening the case even more so for masters rowers. So lastly, looking onto the recovery side of it, pretty simple. Afterwards, the 30-minute window to hit protein has been shown not to be true. However, if you don't have protein in that window afterwards, it's then going to become a bit more difficult to hit your overall target for the day. For endurance athletes, there's lots of evidence out there. A lot of it is skewed by bodybuilders who are taking performance-enhancing drugs. But for endurance athletes, it's been shown you don't need more than 1.6 grams of protein per day per kilo of body weight. So for me, I'm around 100 kilos. I'd be looking at around 160 grams of protein per day. Ideally spread that out throughout the day as well. You don't want to just have it all at dinner. You absorb the protein better if you spread it out as much as possible into 4 or 5 meals. So hope that was helpful. Pretty popular one in terms of like requests. Again, I haven't seen as much information out there. Generally, you get stronger, you go faster. You get stronger, you avoid injury, you train more consistently, you get faster. You do weights training, you have a bit more variety in your training, you enjoy your training more, you do it more consistently, you get faster. If you like this, like it, comment. I'm open to suggestions. But yeah, cheers.